Donald Trump does not represent the Republican Party. I was offended by his remarks. Listen, Hispanics in America and Hispanics in Texas, from the Alamo to Afghanistan, have been extraordinary people, citizens of our country and of our state.
Makes no difference what you think about Donald Trump. The man makes news. He's making plenty of news this weekend. The problem with it is it's the kind of news that the GOP does not necessarily want to get involved in. Let's get the Monday News Call started. First, veteran broadcast host and political commentator Steve McPartlin, joined by the veteran entertainer and comic you've seen on Comedy Central and performing at comedy shows in the New York metro area, around the country as well. Joe DeVito. Gentlemen, no laughs. Let's go ahead and get started for the moment because I don't think we're going to be laughing a lot. By the way, we do want to let everybody know that the president is at the Pentagon today, meeting his advisors there regarding an update on ISIS, and we are awaiting the president stepping to the podium. We will take his comments live. So before we get to the president, let's then dig into this. Joe, I have to believe that if we are going to talk about comic relief, though, we probably do have to start with Donald Trump, because I got to imagine that whether you love him, you hate him, it makes absolutely no difference. The guy is a gold mine for guys working the stage.
Yeah, it's hard to think of something that you could be in a conversation with Trump and think, well, I'm going to top what he says, because he's beyond exaggeration.
But what is it about Donald Trump that makes him funny and worthwhile? I mean, come on, everybody says crazy things. Some people even have real strange hair. What is it about it that makes him such an easy target?
I think that he takes it to the extreme, and that it's impossible to embarrass or shame Donald Trump. You just have to look at his hair and know that that's not someone who's worried about what other people think. And also, he has enough money to ignore just about everyone else's opinions. So I do think this thing that he doesn't represent the Republican Party. Donald Trump represents Donald Trump, and as long as you keep that in mind, you can have some fun with what he says and maybe come away with a talking point or two from his outrageous opinions.
All right, Steve, let's go ahead and get to that, because what Joe said is exactly what Rick Perry said. Rick Perry said Donald Trump does not represent the Republican Party. Well, he can say that, but certainly if you look at the numbers out there and look at the polls, there's a lot of Republicans out there who seem to think he does these days.
Yeah, I understand that point, but he doesn't represent the Republican Party. But then again, neither does Rick Perry. Nobody does. The only person who's going to represent the Republican Party will be the nominee. At this point, they're all individuals seeking out the same job. So they don't speak for all of those people who might pull a lever with an R next to it. None of them do. None of them speak for everybody. And until they get nominated and sit there and develop the platform, none of them speak for the party. Well, now, as far as Donald goes, I've been acquainted with him for a number of years, and the truth of the matter is the man has no filter. And when his back is to the wall, what he will do normally is lash out and attack and be aggressive. And that's something that most candidates are the antithesis of. Most candidates, when they're put in a corner, will be calmer, will try and come up with some fatherly, sage advice. And Trump just looks at you and goes, "You're a loser. I have a lot more money than you. I'm smarter than you. I've been more successful than you. You don't know what you're talking about." That's Trump's MO. That's why he gets the attention.
Well, but does that attention then come down to the fact that Donald Trump just might be the guy who says, look, I have no filter, I've got too much money, I don't care. Let me go ahead and be the guy just to spit out what nobody else is willing to say, let them all get fired up about it, let it become a battle point, and maybe, Steve, just start a fight that way is really what he's looking for, because the man can't be elected president if you talk to people on the inside. Of course, they say it's impossible.
Well, I kind of think they're right. I don't think he's going to be an electable candidate. I think he might be able to drive the conversation. For example, his comments about immigration, for the want of one word, he would have made a very good point. Had he said, some of the people who are coming in, some of the people who our borders are failing and are coming in are rapists and murderers and robbers and drug dealers, he would have had a very good, valid point, because the truth of the matter is we do have a rather substantial criminal element coming across the border from Mexico. That's not what he said.
Joe,
he was inarticulate about his comment, and he made it sound like everybody who's coming in is here for no good, and we all know that's absolutely not true.
Joe, isn't that really the big point here, that people are hammering away at the one comment that he made, which was insensitive, which did seem as if it brought everybody into this, everybody from Mexico, and then he said at the end, well, I assume there are some good people. Had Donald Trump just come back and said, there are great people coming in from Mexico, they come into this country, they work hard, they do the job, we're proud to have them here, that would have probably ended all of this because, look, we've got a case this past weekend where there was a young woman in San Francisco who was shot and killed by someone who had been deported several times, yet was still in America illegally and still out of jail. The point is made, but it was made badly.
Yeah. Of course. Well, if he had started with that part and then gone to the illegal behavior after, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But that's not the way Trump works. Trump would be great if we were having an election for dictator because he doesn't have to answer to anyone. But the truth is, our problem with immigration is that we have a failed state to our southern border. The reality is most of the people coming over from Mexico and Latin America are hardworking Roman Catholics just trying to improve their lot in life. Europe wishes they had our immigration problem. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a problem, but you can't characterize the people coming over as criminals and rapists. It was a dumb thing to say, and I think because he's surrounded by yes men, or who even knows if there's even room for other people in the room when he's talking, he's going to say stupid things like that, and it's his own fault.
Hey, Joe, what about Ted Cruz? Because he came out and said about Donald Trump, I salute him. Now, if you look at what everybody else is saying, that's a pretty gutsy move because while he does he tempers it a little bit, still to come out and say that might be difficult for him to live down. Oh, wait a minute. Then again, Ted Cruz is another guy who basically, I think, many times has no filter, and people like him for it.
Yeah, I don't think salute was the right word to use there. I think maybe to say something like, well, he's bringing up an uncomfortable topic that we need to talk about. I mean, it's kind of like the way your crazy uncle at a holiday dinner may say things that are inappropriate. It doesn't mean the topic he's bringing up is not worthy of discussion. It just means it's not the way you phrase it while you're passing the mashed potatoes. Yeah,
those are the guys that you lock outside the doors right away and make sure that they can't come back into the reception. Steve, let me get back to you. Again, one more thing about Donald Trump. He says to Miss Universe, you're a hypocrite, because he said Pauline Vega criticized me for telling the truth about illegal immigration, but then said she would keep the crown -hypocrite, which he put out on his own Donald J. Trump tweet. You think he's got something?
No. No, I don't. She worked very hard for that crown. She won that crown fair and square. And just because he goes off the deep end and mouths off and says something in a very inarticulate manner, why? And he's criticized for it, just about universally criticized for it, except for perhaps Cruz. Everyone else in the world has criticized him. Why should she punish herself? By stepping away from the opportunities that Miss Universe will afford her, by stepping away from the scholarship money, by stepping away from all of the benefits that she worked very hard for. No, he wouldn't do it. And somewhere in his career, Donald Trump has told one of his bosses he was wrong and he didn't like what he said. And I assure you, Trump didn't quit his job just because he didn't like something his boss said.
Wait a minute. You said Donald Trump at one point in his career told a boss of his somewhere that he was
I'm sure he had a boss somewhere.
I feel like Fonzie.
It might have been his dad. Might have been when he was working with his dad. He might have disagreed with his dad about something. Somewhere along the line, he had to have a boss, and I'm sure he had a disagreement with it. No, I don't. I see. This is the kind of thing he does that gets me angry, and I like the man personally. But instead of coming up with taking the higher road, he will get down and fight with everybody, no matter how small a person you are. When I say small, I don't mean to diminish Miss Universe, but let's face it, in the scheme of things, she's a beauty queen. And yet he's willing to get down there and fight with her too. Not everybody's an enemy, Donald. Calm down.
20 seconds to you, Joe. Did he have a point about Miss Universe? You agree with Steve?
No, I think she is a hypocrite because you notice the Miss Universe pageant isn't open up to contestants from other parts of the universe. It's always a woman from Earth. So I think as a cis Earthling, what she did herself was hypocritical and an Earth first move.
I've never thought of that. Exactly. All right. 1 to DeVito for the non-terrestrial side of things. Very nicely done. Gentlemen, please stand by just a moment. We'll be right back with Joe DeVito and Steve McPartlin. However, we are standing by. The president is at the Pentagon. We expect to join him live when we continue next, right here on MidPoint.